Welcome to Bridges Over History, where we tell the stories that textbooks skim over, and shine a light on the human side of war. Most people know Leningrad was under siege for over 2 years, during World War II. But what they don't know is what it felt like, what it smelled like, what it meant to survive 872 days, surrounded by death, starvation, and silence. Today we're diving into the human story, the Siege of Leningrad, the pain, the defiance, and the people who endured the unendurable. It's 1941. Operation Barbarossa is in full swing. Hitler wants Leningrad taken quickly, a symbolic blow to Soviet morale. By September, German and Finnish forces have cut off the city. No rail, no road, no escape. The siege has begun. The siege began on September 8, 1941. It ended on January 27, 1944. It lasted 872 days. The estimated population trapped was somewhere between 2.5 million to 3 million people, including 400,000 children. The Nazis didn't plan to capture Leningrad. They planned to starve it. It was a slow, methodical war crime, with one goal: extinction through hunger. Winter came fast. Food ran out faster. Rations were cut. Bread was only at 125 grams per person per day. That's about the size of a deck of cards. And even that wasn't really bread. It was mixed with sawdust, cellulose, and even wallpaper paste. People ate anything. Pets, leather belts, glue. And yes, some even turned to cannibalism. Not because they were monsters, but because they were human and starving. And nobody wants to talk about that part of the war, but it happened. According to NKVD records, there were 1,216 documented cases of cannibalism in Leningrad during the siege. Soviet authorities recorded and prosecuted many of these cases to maintain social order amid widespread famine. From the diary of Olga Grechna, a teenage survivor, I saw a woman cry over her dead child. Then I saw her drag the body inside. That was the last time we saw her, for days. Diaries of Tanya Savicha, a young girl who recorded the death of every family member until she was alone. A quote from her diary says, Zahinya died on December 28, 1941, at noon. Grandma died on January 25th of 1942. Everyone is dead, only Tanya is left. Bodies lay in the streets, frozen. There weren't enough people left to bury the dead, and those who lived, their willpower became the city's last line of defense. When the Germans cut off the last land routes, the only way to reach the city was across Lake Ladoga, a vast frozen lake outside Leningrad. This became the city's lifeline. It was called the Road of Life. In summer, supplies ferried by boat. In winter, trucks drove across the frozen lake, constantly shelled and bombarded by German forces. Over 1 million civilians were evacuated this way, and thousands of tons of food were delivered. From truck driver Ivan Konovov, we couldn't use headlights. The ice cracked under the weight. Sometimes I drove by the sound of the motor alone. You prayed the lake would hold. Drivers would mark the ice with pine branches. They had no lights, just instinct and moonlight. And when the ice cracked, you sank. Hundreds died this way, but still, they kept driving. Despite everything, the hunger, the cold, the fear, the people of Leningrad lived. They organized concerts, opened libraries, wrote poetry. There were art exhibitions, while artillery rained down. It wasn't denial, it was defiance. In 1942, the Leningrad Radio Orchestra performed Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony, written in and for the city as a massive act of resistance. Loudspeakers across the city broadcast the concert, so the Germans would hear it too. An eyewitness testimony from survivor Maria Petrova. I stitched uniforms with bleeding fingers. My mother played piano with frostbite. The Nazis shelled us that morning. We played music that night. Imagine being so hungry you're hallucinating, and still showing up to a string section rehearsal. That's the kind of strength you can't fake. That's the soul of Leningrad. In January of 1944, Soviet forces finally broke the blockade. The siege was over, but the city was forever changed. According to Soviet accounts, the total number of civilian deaths ranged around 1 million, mostly from starvation and cold. Over 3,000 buildings were destroyed, and countless more lives were permanently scarred. An eyewitness testimony from survivor Vasily Kuznetsov. We didn't cheer right away. We cried first, then slowly joy returned. It was like thawing after being frozen for years. They didn't just survive, they endured. And what they endured became one of the most haunting and heroic stories of civilian resistance in history. Today, St. Petersburg has memorial sites and candles, statues, but most will never know the story of Leningrad. Leningrad didn't fall, not to bombs, not to hunger, not to despair, because its people refused to give up. They turned starvation into strength, silence into song, and a frozen city into a monument to human will. This was the Siege of Leningrad, not just the numbers, but the lives behind them. Let me know in the comments what other forgotten civilian stories we should tell. Like, subscribe, and until next time, remember, history isn't always about weapons. Sometimes it's about the people who outlasted them.